Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. And my name is Dune Nguyen, and today we have a wonderful guest joining us today, I think all the way from Sherwood Park, Alberta, where I am as well. And we have Mr. Tim Isberg joining us. Let me give you a quick introduction of Tim before he joins us on stage here, folks. And let us know if you can hear us out there. And Tim Isberg is a singer-songwriter-soldier. He really plays the contemporary folk roots and alternative country and Americana. Those are kind of music genre that Tim tends to focus on. But really, originally from southern Alberta, Tim Isberg is an accomplished singer, songwriter, and a veteran soldier. An ACMA Male Artist nominee. He's an emerging artist after a rewarding career in the Canadian Army. From Rwanda to Afghanistan, Tim personally experienced cultures and conflicts and the best as well as the worst of humanity have to offer. Now, as a performer, Tim has entertained audiences in many corners of Europe and Africa, and Afghanistan, and throughout the Middle East and Levant. Many of his storyteller songs stem from these life adventures. So Tim brings a well-crafted songs to the stage, along with an appealing vocal timbre. And more than that, he brings an endearing array of life experiences that he shares with, in a way that makes the listener feel connected with the credible sincerity that, and a sense of humor carefully woven in through the stories and songs. In all of that, he does that all in the live shows. And, whether it's solo or his full band where he shines most, Tim's shows are not to be missed, folks. So an international tour in the spring of 2016, followed by Tim's album, Tears Along the Road. Released in October 2015. It was recorded with Grammy nominee and junior celebrated producer-engineer Miles Wilkinson, and selected by Music Canada in the top 25 favorite albums of 2015. Now, Tim's latest album, Running on the Edge, also recorded with Mr. Wilkinson at the helm, was also released in February 2019 and nominated as top 5 best albums in Alberta by the ACMA. Now, Tim's new unique special touring project is 25 years after Songs and Stories of a Canadian Soldier in Rwanda. Combining a cascade of photographs and stories and live music, Tim shares a very personal account of his experiences in Rwanda in 1994 and the songs that it inspired. Tim is a published author. In October 2017, Simon & Schuster's book, Everyday Heroes, includes a chapter by Tim on one of his many experiences in the line of duty. It's a national bestseller, folks. And we'll share his website and Facebook page later on in the feed here, as well as it is in the post on the Facebook there. But with that introduction, please help me in welcoming our wonderful guest today, Mr. Tim Isberg. Tim, welcome to the conversation. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, very good, Dune. Thanks for having me on.
Great. Now, I would love to hear a bit more from you, a bit of a backstory beyond the introduction there. Just whatever random kind of journey you want to take us to give us more context of who we're hearing from for the next hour and a bit, Tim.
Well, yeah. So, music has been a part of my life for a long time, even before I joined the military. But I joined the military really in the mid 80s because the economy was such in Alberta that there weren't any real jobs anyway. So, but I kind of left music, went to the military, and then after many years, I've kind of gyrated back to it. So, which really started for me probably back in the early 2000s when I decided to maybe just pick up the guitar and do some more writing and have some fun with it. I kind of realized that I missed it a lot. Not that I didn't play during all those years serving in the military, I did, but not like you would as a professional or even a weekend, warrior type of guy. So, it's always been a part of me, from the time that I first learned how to play guitar and write songs as probably a 12-year-old kid, trying to play in bands and do the usual things. So not unusual compared to a lot of people like myself, but the only unusual thing that perhaps compared to some other musicians that I know is that I sort of took a hiatus for a few decades while I did something completely different.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that background as well. Now we have Janet and Laurie and Laurel. Few of our viewers are just chiming in here with their thoughts. And Laurie said, "Interesting guy," she says, and Laurel says, "Hi, Tim." So, in terms of music, it sounds like you're probably focusing on music for most of your sort of time these days. That's a major focus. Are you writing any more books, or is it music mostly you spend your time these days, or how does that work?
Oh, geez, I'm kind of a multitask guy. I'm not a linear thinker, so writing is something I do anyway. I'm actually for many years, I've been taking university courses because it's of an interest to me in the global studies program. My first degree was in environmental science. I know, way over to one side. And that's where I was trying to get some jobs back in the mid 80s and didn't really pan out. But I enjoyed my time working with Alberta Fish and Wildlife and provincial parks and other things that I did. So after the military, while serving in the military, a lot of the jobs that I did overseas were what we call Pol Mil or political military sort of related jobs, diplomatic sort of things, or political military liaison. So you're liaising between the politician side and the senior military side. So I gained a lot of experience and exposure and interest in, I'll call it global affairs and working abroad and working in different languages, working under different conditions as well. It became an interest. So I started taking university courses, and because it's very political science based, you do a lot of writing and a lot of reading. So when I can write sort of just short stories or fiction or think about ideas or writing songs, for me, it's a nice change from the academic papers. I have a lot more freedom to write and think about, the way I'd like to express a story, true or not. Right. So, so I'm not writing another book at the moment. The book that I did contribute to was based on first-hand stories from veterans from World War II through Korea, Afghanistan, peacekeeping, even soldiers at home. It's kind of a chicken soup for the soul sort of thing. It's called Everyday Heroes, and it is some of them are sad, some of them are happy, some of them are indifferent, but it's an interesting book. So I'd like to keep that sort of process and write some more for sure. As far as other activities and music, writing music is something I've been struggling lately, just kind of distracted with this thing called COVID-19. For some, it's been a huge inspiration. And I have to admit, like for myself, it's not been inspiring. It's mostly my military mind is switched into gear, and I'm doing the planning and preparing and making sure things are switched on around the house with our family, and that sort of thing. So, what I miss is the interaction with human beings in 3 dimensions. That's what I'm missing right now in terms of the live shows and stuff. So it's a challenge for a lot of musicians like myself, I suppose. I'm not different from a lot of the others, but what makes it more challenging as a self-managed artist, without a label or a manager or booking agents and things, that I work super hard to get all the gigs that I get. And I get some good ones. And, a revenue stream for me is the gig fee where I can pay the band, but also the merchandise that I have at my shows.
Right.
And so without the live show, I have no merchandise to sell. So that's another factor that is affecting. So it's harder to share my music. It's not like I have a website that I've got thousands of people, buying merchandise on. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah. This might be a good time to just share some music early on with our viewers. What I'm thinking of is the project that you and your band, your recent band, your current band, does with the COVID thing. Tell us about that collaboration there as I cue
Oh,
it up.
yeah. So we did an isolation concert. We basically recorded ourselves in different rooms, trying to make a concert. We put a 5-song concert together,
Uh-huh.
and we put it live on YouTube and showed it. And it's just a way for us to kind of play together, sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
Work. And I think what this clip is just one song from that concert, and it's available on YouTube or on my webpage or whatever to
Right.
watch.
And so this is the one that's is it the called "Waiting in the Wings"? Is it?
Yeah, the song is called "Waiting in the Wings," and what you're seeing is my bandmate Mark Ladisser on this song. Anyway, he's on acoustic guitar and back vocals.
Mm-hmm.
And my bass player, John Hewitt, also a singer-songwriter in his own right. He's doing bass and back vocals, and then myself. So we're doing a little bit of 3-part harmonies, singing about a song called Waiting in the Wings. I collaborated on with a fellow writer, and it was a song that was written initially for with a theater reference, in the wings of the stage, so to speak. And it's a little bit about a woman that he can basically wait for until she realizes that he's the right man for her. And it's called Waiting in the Wings. It's a bit of a bluegrassy thing, not too much. But if it is, I blame my fellow bandmate Mark Ladisser, because any influence of bluegrass comes from him. So, although he probably wouldn't say that this is bluegrass because it's not fast enough.
Oh man, sure it is.
But it is what it is. It's called Waiting in the Wings.
All right, hit it, brother.
I knew when he came around, his charms would lift you off the ground. Be waiting in the wings to bring you love. And he is smooth as he can be, and there's nothing in his heart you'll see. Be waiting in the wings to bring you love. I'll be waiting, waiting here, I'll be waiting. Baby, have no fear, I'll be waiting in the wings to bring you love. Well, I have heard he's done this before. He's left the girls at the door. Be waiting in the wings to bring you love. My love can pass the test of time. I'll be there when he leaves you crying. Be waiting in the wings to bring you love. I'll be waiting, waiting here, I'll be waiting. Baby, have no fear, I'll be waiting in the wings to bring you love.
Okay.
Well, I'll be there when it all goes down. I'll be there when he's not around. Be waiting in the wings to bring you love. And you can just put me on hold until his love for you turns cold. Be waiting in the wings to bring you love. I'll be waiting, waiting here, I'll be waiting. Baby, have no fear, I'll be waiting in the wings to bring you love. I'll be waiting, waiting here, I'll be waiting. Baby, have no fear, I'll be waiting in the wings to bring you love, 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 love.
Fantastic.
All right.
Tell us more about that. How long of a time frame did you guys take to do that? Is it?
Well, I don't know. It was a few weeks, really, in a sense of getting it all together.
Uh-huh.
We had to do the video editing, which, you know, when you start playing and it's not working right, you got to restart.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, because I made it into a concert, it wasn't like I just did one song and then recorded another song later. It was all done as one take, if you will.
Yeah.
So because I wanted to keep it feeling like a live show with the banter in between, the only thing we couldn't do very well was talk amongst ourselves. So,
right.
But it worked out. I mean, for me, it was an experiment. It was the first time we've ever done something like that. And it's awkward. But you know, these are awkward times. So it calls for awkward measures.
Yeah.
So yeah, it worked out. It was something different. And when we do it again in the future, we'll do something similar. What I've got planned, at least in my mind, is we're going to do kind of a live concert, recorded, and then put where we're actually together at a safe distance, but we're at least in the same room. We can see each other. We can kind of communicate that way, non-verbally and verbally, and make it basically put on a concert, maybe 4 or 5 songs, something like that. Just a little bit of one set, and we'll record that, and we'll try it again. But this time it won't be in separate rooms. It'll be it'll be more like a live show, like a house concert sort of thing.
Bet.
So
yeah,
we're gonna put that together in the near future.
Sounds exciting.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. You know, some of our viewers out there, again, Sharon Huns, you know him. He says, Tim is a great musician and singer. I remember met him when Mars played at his wedding. So
he did. I know. It was great, actually. I mean, people go like, what, you just got married? Like, well, not exactly. But yeah, you know, after many years of living in sin, decided to get married, and Mars was the band that stepped up and played our wedding.
Awesome.
And it was the best wedding ever. It was a lot of fun. And the room was full of musicians, really, right?
Yeah.
And had I got married, you know, like 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been that way. It would have been probably a bunch of Army people or something. But I mean, I had a few Army friends there and stuff, of course, and relatives. But yeah, the room was full of musicians, and I remember some of the band members were kind of nervous about playing in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Because they were all thinking they're going to get critiqued. But we had so many compliments of the band. So for Sharon and Sean and the rest of the gang that played that night, you should know that you had there was the common compliment, besides wishing myself and my wife Oksana, you know, a happy life, was that the band was great. The music selection was great. So you hit it out of the park, Sharon. Way to go.
You bet. And we also have Carol also chimed in. She said she loved that song. You know, that song that you did there. You guys did the COVID collaboration. She loved it. And Cheryl Stone chimed in here. So tell us more about the journey. And this might be a good time for me to bring up some photos where you can share some memories of various parts of your life. And we can switch up the order however you like, but I'm going to bring in some photos right now. You see that photo there? And I'm going to just take my video out here. So tell us about, obviously this is very much your albums and kind of promo pick, if you will, right?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we get to do as artists, is try to find a good picture of yourself. And and the problem with good pictures of me is usually my face. No, I mean, you got to do promo shots and that. And we took this picture, Maureen Ames.
Yes,
from Maureen awesome. Ames Photography, great supporter of live music in Edmonton, and you know, sort of an emerging photographer. She joined us for a video shoot where we did a video shoot out at Ardrossan, just east of Sherwood Park, and we put together this video shoot. And during the video shoot, she took some pictures, and this is just one of the pictures from the shoot. So I just picked it as something to share with your audience today.
Wonderful. And tell us about this this other one here. Let me just see here. My mistake. Let me do that again. Let me bring that one up. And hopefully you can now see that one there instead. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, so again, sort of promo shots. I was, this has a bit of a good story to it, actually. It was, this is actually taken by another photographer named Ivy Jane Photography. And what we're doing is we're looking for shots that might go well with the latest album, which was called Running on the Edge. And so we thought, let's look for a place that's kind of like on the edge. And we found this place above the North Saskatchewan River, which is close to the Edge of the World. I think it was called Edge of the World. Remember that? There's a spot somewhere in West Edmonton there. Anyway, we found this spot and thought, well, let's take a few shots. So that's really where the shot came from. But there was a concept behind the photo. It wasn't just getting a photo. It was looking for a spot that kind of had that sort of edginess to it. The other interesting thing is, literally, as we were taking this picture, about 1 million fruit flies decided to fly around. So,
oh, really?
It was something that we had to work very quickly. And even then, I think Ivy was painstakingly removing, the odd fruit fly from the film, if you will, through Photoshop or something. But I give her credit for it. But no, we kind of staged it, and it made for an interesting angle, an interesting shot.
Yeah. Let me just put that on for people there. So I believe I'm spelling this correctly. Tell me if I got that wrong there, my friend.
That's correct.
Yeah, and just to be proper, I think that the previous one, this is
that's Maureen Ames.
You bet. And so right. So thank you for sharing that. Now let's get into some of the military photos that you have here. Now here you are, probably not in Canada.
Yeah, definitely not in Canada. This photo is, I spent a year in Rwanda in 1994. So I got there in the summer of 94 and I left in the fall of 95, August, I think. And I was mostly working on the western side of Rwanda in a province called Cyangugu, on the Zaire border. It was Zaire at the time. Now it's the Democratic Republic of Congo, which right at the south end of Lake Kivu on the Ruzizi River. That's kind of where I was based, working in around that area. And it's of course quite mountainous and jungle. And this picture is actually, I had some time off from my UN, duties as a military observer, and I was able to go up the Varangas in the mountains and look for the mountain gorillas, the silverbacks that were supposed to be there, and they were. But I was really curious because of the genocide and the war, and everything. What the status of them was. And as I mentioned before, I have a background in environmental science and fisheries and wildlife sort of things, so I have a big interest in the gorillas. And so I was able to get up there, climb up. It's like 1,700 meters. It was quite high, quite an arduous walk up and back down. And even just the journey to get there was another story, which I won't tell on this line. But it was an interesting occasion, and I really feel grateful for it. And in this case, we found Diane Fossey's grave, from her work with the silverbacks, and she was murdered. And if you've ever seen the movie Gorillas in the Mist, I think is what it was called. Yeah, that's a story about Diane Fossey, and her favorite gorilla named Digit, which is buried actually near her grave as well, and where she worked. And so we sort of looked around there. And I also got to meet a wonderful woman named Roz Carr, an American that was living in Rwanda most of her life, that was the best friend of Diane Fossey. She lived at the base of the volcano, or of the Varangas, of where these mountain gorillas are located. And she has this wonderful garden, and I was able to meet her and establish a friendship, and in fact went back to visit her 2 or 3 times, just to visit, because she was a lovely older lady that was well known for her garden. So that the picture is really from that time, but it's a lighter picture, if you will. It's something that was more of an experience, that was an enjoyable experience compared to the rest of my experience in Rwanda at the time, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, in the midst of kind of very extreme circumstances, one can always find the levity and lightness and joy if one takes the time, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it takes great effort, actually.
Hmm.
It wasn't like we just had public transit or easy vehicles to drive around in, but it was, we had limited transportation means. If you think about it, 1994, we didn't even have email yet or anything like that,
Mm.
right? I mean, you wouldn't think about it, but it's true. There was
Wow.
the way that we could get around Rwanda was
Mhm.
was much more challenging than it would be today.
Yeah.
Plus, just the lack of vehicles, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of roads.
Hmm.
Like I remember even from where I worked to the capital of Kigali it's only a couple hundred kilometers, but that was a 5-hour drive. So
Mm.
I
Yeah.
remember that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's where this shot
Yeah.
is from. It's from near the top of Mount Visoki,
Yeah.
where the
Hey,
mountain gorillas are.
your friend, is it Ari Pekka has chimed in here. It says Tim
Ari
Isberg.
Pekka-Lakanen,
Yeah, it
all
says
the way
great
from
artist and respected soldier. Yeah.
yes, Ari. Hi, Ari. He's we served together. He's from Finland, and we
Hmm.
served together in the Middle East, in Israel, and I think mostly on the Israeli side of the Golan. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Tell us about this photo. You are in exercises or training or.
No, this is in Afghanistan. That picture, we're on the road taking a break. It's super hot out. I mean, you've got. I think we're doing a weapons range actually.
Hmm.
So, it's quite hot out. There's really no cover. There's no shade or anything, but you've got all this gear on. You've got your tactical vest, your plates, protective plates. You got about 300 rounds of ammunition and plus a couple of different weapon systems. So you're carrying all this sort of garb and your ballistic glasses and a helmet. And so I'm just sitting on the edge of the road taking a break. But this is in Afghanistan in 2013, I think it was.
Now, just for my interest, I was born and raised in Vietnam. It's pretty
Yeah.
hot weather there. How does that compare? Is it drier where you are there in this photo, or is it
Yeah, no, it's
similar?
dry. It's dry.
Dry.
Yeah,
Dry.
no,
Okay.
and then it's just hot because it's a desert sort of landscape, and
Yeah. So.
it can be cooler. I mean, Afghanistan has mountains, so
Hmm.
you get up high in altitude. It's a different sort of life, especially in the fall. But
Hmm.
in this day, it was probably in the neighborhood of 35 degrees
Yeah.
Celsius anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this picture. This is something that Ari Pekka would recognize probably. Um, this is actually in the Golan Heights
Hmm.
on the site of the Valley of Tears. It's called. It's a site of a battle that took place in 1973
Hmm.
between the Israeli Defense Forces and I'll just use the term Arab forces because it was a
Hmm.
combined
Yeah.
sort of attack and then counterattack. But this is just a shot from the Golan Heights, somewhere circa. I don't know when this was. I think this was 2000. Oh, it must have been around 2005 or six.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, I served. I did a couple of tours in the Middle East in different ways. And one of those was working on the Israeli side on the Golan Heights as a military observer. But I also ended up working with UNDOF, a different mission, I'm using these acronyms like crazy, I know, but the Disengagement Observer Force. I
Hmm.
worked with them as an LO, a liaison officer on what was called the Bravo side, the Syrian side. So I lived in Damascus and then worked on this sort of the eastern side of the Golan area of separation for quite a long time. It was a really, really fun experience actually working out there. The only thing that was not good when we were out there in 2006 was when the Hezbollah and the Israelis started fighting on the Lebanon border, and we lost some friends that were killed in a patrol base, including one Canadian friend and a Finnish friend, Chinese and an Austrian.
Right.
Were killed in a bomb that was dropped on their observation post or on their patrol base. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I mean, there's some really, really good memories that are made on this stuff. And I think one of the things I'd like to mention is that serving in the military and doing these I think I've done about the equivalent of 8 tours of duty, is that you make some really great friends, and they're long-standing friendships. It's a great benefit actually to do that, and it's something that things like social media have allowed you to continue those friendships much easier than it was back in the day, where you literally had to write a letter and lick a stamp, to send it off to someone, or even email is harder now than it would be with just the new social media with Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or something, where you can just sort of send a message off to your friends or see how they're doing.
Yeah.
So, but I've definitely made a lot of good friendships along the way in my international duties, for sure.
I do want to echo that, because with my background, I can vouch for the fact that, hardships has a way of binding people together, right? When you sort of experience hardship and really challenges like that, it binds in a way that sometimes just having fun doesn't quite bind the same way, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's one more thing before we leave these photos. Now, in the military, you've been in there long enough that you sort of have been through many different roles and titles and whatnot. Where did you end up at the end of your military kind of service?
Well, I was a commanding officer for a headquarters in Edmonton, which is where I didn't start my career here, but I mean, my career started in serving in the artillery, in the combat arms. Lived in Petawawa, Ontario for a number of years, served with the airborne as a paratrooper, did my time there, and I've got the neck and the knees to prove it. Things that catch up with you, things you don't think about when you're 25, but you definitely think about when you're 45 or 55. And I, with different exercises and training and postings, mostly in Western Canada, really, as opposed in concurrency with deploying abroad, but I ended up serving a lot of my time in different headquarters capacities as in operations environments, running operations centers or things like that in major headquarters based in and around Edmonton, and for a while I was a chief instructor of a training school. So I got a pretty good experience, pretty good exposure. I had really good jobs. I didn't really ever have a job in the military that I didn't like. They were all really, really good. Learned a lot from those things. Don't regret it at all. Short story, when I first joined the military, it was after trying for a number of years to get into fish and wildlife after my college degree in environmental science. And I had some work experience and it just wasn't working out. So when I thought of joining the military, it was just another option for me that I thought I could try. And but weirdly enough, is that about 8 weeks into my 13 weeks of basic training as an officer, I had some reserve force time or militia time before that as another rank. I was a corporal. But when I joined the regular force, I wanted to be an officer. I just thought it would look better on my resume because I didn't intend to stay long. 35 years later, I was still serving, but I was offered a position with Alberta Fish and Wildlife during my basic training with the Army. And that required me to really think about, like, okay, what am I doing then? And I sat down and thought, what will I see, do, and learn in 10 years with Alberta Fish and Wildlife or something like it? And I knew what that was. And it was like 5 or 6 things, on my list. And then I thought, what will I see, do, and learn in 10 years with the Canadian Army? And I filled up 2 pages of stuff that could be. And as it turned out, most of that stuff was definitely true, even though I was a bit naive at the time. It was an opportunity that opened doors in terms of deploying abroad, doing exercises in Europe or Africa or the Arctic, learning different languages, hurling yourself out of serviceable aircraft with a parachute, all these things that were kind of dynamic and exciting to me. And at the end of the day, that career that I went through has influenced me in my songwriting and my music today in terms of stage presence and confidence, but also the writing and the stories behind the song.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of comments coming in here. You might have missed some of them, so I'll display them again here. Janet says, well, quite a life you've led, and thank you for your service and great music. So moving from...
Oh, and I see Murray Beer has chimed in.
Yeah.
Murray was my first battery commander, or second battery commander, something like that,
Uh-huh.
in Petawawa days. And he comes from a long line of military officers, including a brother who served and became also one of my bosses. And his father also served in the artillery. So it's kind of he's a old friend that I haven't seen in person in 3 dimensions for some time. So Murray, thanks for chiming in, buddy. Good to see you.
Yeah. Hey Murray, if you have a photo of yourself or something like that, you can post it in the comment, and I can actually bring it up on screen here for Tim and everybody to see. And that goes with everybody. But tell us about this photo, though. I'm going to take my video. We'll get into some of the music thing here. Tell us about this one.
So that's a picture from the CD release we did in 2015 at the Yardbird Suite in Edmonton. Fantastic venue. We put together this band that basically was the people that recorded on my album Tears Along the Road. And it was my first real record project, you could say. I mean, I did have a record before this, which was kind of more of an underground sort of experience. It was done in a different manner. This was my first, I'll call it, professional recording with really, really top-notch artists. Stuart McDougall on piano, famous writer, songwriter, singer, performer in his own rights, written songs for Katie Lang and others. Mike Lent on the bass guitar, Sandro Dominelli on percussion, and Mark Ladisser with longer hair on the Telecaster. And Dune, I know you must know Mark. He can shred like no one can shred.
Yeah, he is awesome. He's awesome.
So,
and he can shred the same way on acoustic, which is amazing.
Yeah, and he can also do the same thing on the mandolin. He's a bit of a bluegrass guy.
Yeah.
And it's not that I write bluegrass, but the stuff that I listen to or that I play covers is everything. I love everything, a lot of different kinds of genres of music. The genres of music that I write tends to be more of this roots, folk, contemporary folk, alternative country sort of style. It's just what comes out. It's just what seems to come out of me when I'm writing. Yeah. Although there is some blues swing and some other things that are part of that. But this photo was a really fun event in my life, really, because it's the first time that I exposed myself as really an emerging professional musician. So I had that sort of stress and pressure, plus coming up with the whole show and budgeting for this and trying to figure out how to pay the band and sell tickets and all that. I went through this whole process of, okay, how do I put on a show? And it's kind of one of those things, if you have a show, will people come? And I don't know if yourself is aware of this, Dune, but as a songwriter and an artist, when you're doing that sort of thing, that's always in the back of your head. Like, you could have a great show, but if there's no one there, you still got to put on a great show. Yeah. Whether it's 2 people or whatever. In this case, we ended up with a great crowd, and it all worked out. I think I made $20 because I paid the band instead of myself, which was the right thing to do. No, I'm just joking, but it was a fun experience. And Emmylou Harris, my producer engineer Miles Wilkinson, has worked with Emmylou, made records with her, and he said to me that she told him once that if you want to make yourself better, you surround yourself with good musicians. And in this case, that's what I did. And ever since then, I've kind of strived to do that where it makes sense. And to this day, we still, everybody in this picture has, we've played together since in some shape, way, or form. And in fact, Mark Ladisser is part of my band now.
Yeah. At the bottom, there's the watermark that says @OldCrank1. So that might be the photographer's handle. Hey, or yeah. Yeah, I just see it at the bottom there.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't see that. I thought it might have been. I know Rocco Macri took some pictures there. I don't know if that was one of them. If it's Old Crank, and that's Heather Anderson is her name.
Yeah, I see it on the bottom. I definitely see @OldCrank1. So that's cool, wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the CD cover for Tears Along the Road, which I ordered. I had to reorder, which is a good news story. I had to reorder a bunch more CDs because I was running out. And that's a success story in every right. But unfortunately, all these CDs arrived literally like a week before we went into lockdown in March, and I haven't had a show since. So I've got all these boxes of new CDs that are very impatiently waiting in boxes to be sprung free and shared with the masses to get on with it. Like I said before, without the show, you don't really sell a lot of merch for an artist like myself. So I really, those live gigs when they come back, something to look forward to.
A note for the viewers, now and later who watch in the replay, if you happen to not have one of Tim's CD yet, please maybe reach out, and I don't know if you can organize or arrange for shipment in that. Is that an option, Tim?
Oh yeah. If they go on my website or Facebook page, there's a shop button. Or you can see how to order music, and I ship the mail. I do mail outs. I do drive-bys. There are some stores locally in different cities that have the CD, but nowadays it's just easier just to mail it out, and people do e-transfer or PayPal or whatever. We all have these means now. So I do sell some online.
Just reach out, get in touch with Tim, and
for both CDs.
You bet. Yeah.
In fact, this picture you're showing now, Dune, that's from the CD release for the latest album called Running on the Edge. So this is Mark Lattiser on guitar and myself and John Hewitt on bass again. And in behind me somewhere is Jamie Cooper, fantastic percussion. He was filling in for, I don't use percussionists or drummers for all my shows. So I kind of have a couple of guys that I call upon that are great to work with and good for my music. And Jamie Cooper and Brendan Lyons are the two drummers of my choice. Really, just we get along. They're great guys. They're great musicians, and they play the right way for my song. So I like to work with them. And unfortunately, you can't see Jamie in this picture, but I attest he is sitting behind me on the kit. We're doing a show. But the story behind this picture, though, if you notice, there's no microphone in front of me, and Mark is on an acoustic guitar that's not plugged in. What had happened is that during the show, near the middle of the second set, the entire PA system blew up in my CD release show. Not something I had planned for, and it wasn't my gear. It was the gear that was provided by the venue, and they had a sound man there, etc. But the whole thing just went kaput, and so thinking on our feet, we didn't want to just end the show there. Did require a change of the set list a little bit, but Mark grabbed this very old vintage Gibson guitar. I unplugged. John has a bass, but it is plugged through an amplifier, so that still worked. And Jamie just picked up the brushes, and then we just decided to get as close as we could to the crowd and just play pure acoustic.
Wow.
In front of a crowd of, 150 people packed in this room. And, but fortunately the room was conducive to that. And I have to, speak on at least on behalf of the band that we were able to make it work as well. So, there's no hiding behind technology. It's either you can do this or you can't. So we rose to the occasion, I think. And we finished the show. And at the end of the day, at the merch table when we're leaving, when folks were going and buying the merch and saying goodbye or hello, whatever, they all commented for most part that this was the best part of the whole show. It was such a surprise. And it made it more intimate in many ways, right? Because everyone had to be so even more quiet than they normally are. So it was a really good time. It was a fun experience. Not something I want to repeat.
Fantastic. You made lemonade out of it.
Tried.
Let's take a look at so this is the Running on Edge CD cover, or I guess.
Yeah, and I want to mention too that this is Michael Robert Rycraft designed this album cover. He's a Juno Award-winning graphic designer that's done a lot of albums for some much bigger people than me. But he bid onto the project, and with the ideas, and the way he does this is that you actually send him the music. He listens to the entire album many times, and he comes up with ideas. He won't do an album cover unless he can listen to the music first. It's just the way he works. But he did a great job on this album cover, I think, just in terms of sort of capturing the feeling of it. The album isn't necessarily a theme of Running on the Edge, but it does. The album cover name comes from a song on the album called "The Edge of a Knife," and it's kind of a very inward-looking, personal sort of viewpoint song of a person that is struggling a little bit because the world has changed around him. And the song is called "Edge of a Knife," and it's one of the songs on this album. And another song that's of mention, I think, on this record is a song called Baghdad Cafe. And the reason I want to mention that is because two things. Firstly, that there's a long cello solo at the start of that song and a cello outro in the end of the song. And that cellist is my wife's father, named Valery Volkov. He was Russian-born, Ukrainian-raised, very famous cellist. Yo-Yo Ma was going to work with him. He studied with Rostropovich, in fact. So, but he died at the age of 57 of cancer, and he never really got to see his fame because he was just at that pinnacle of his career where it was going to just break loose in North America. And the reason I say that, all that long story, is because that cello solo is from him. And when I heard that cello solo, he's playing live. It's an old recording I had of him playing live with the Syrian National Symphony Orchestra when they were on tour in California in the 90s. And I had this old recording, and when I heard it, it has this really neat sort of Arabic music feel to it, a Middle Eastern sway and different instrumentation. And he has this wonderful solo, and it's live. And I heard it, and I just thought I could write a song with that somehow in mind. So I took it as a sample. And with the magic of Miles Wilkinson, we were able to, I wrote a song that's in the middle, and then we used this cello solo as bookends, the intro and the outro, to match the song. And the song is called Baghdad Cafe. And it's not a song about anything true or a story of experience. It's really just a kind of a romanticized sort of Hotel California-like experience in the desert somewhere from a young fella who came across a cafe and met a girl but never left. It's kind of a mystery. So, and the second reason I wanted to mention that song is because we're actually putting together a lyric video for that song in the near future with some artwork done by a local artist named Jamie Pruden, who's done some visual graphics for use in the video. So and it's all local talent. It's, the song will be there, but the artwork and the videography and the music, it's all from local musicians and artists. So I'm looking forward to sharing that on my YouTube channel, probably in the next month or so.
Wonderful. Tell us about this photo.
That's okay. So 2016, we did an international tour. We did 10 shows throughout Israel and Greece, and this is something I set up on my own, but also through friends that I had met in Israel when I worked there in previous years of my life. And because while I lived in Israel, when I could, I actually played music in folk clubs or house concerts or just, jams, open stages, whatever. And when I got around, it wasn't like I was living in a military camp or something like that. I lived in an apartment. I had my own life there. And generally speaking, I lived there at least a year at a time. So I made a lot of friends to this day in there. So this is actually a Jacob's Ladder festival. This is on the edge of the Sea of Galilee, just outside Tiberias, in a place called Gennesaret. It's a resort, and every year they have a folk festival. We've got about 4 or 5 stages. This is one of the main stages, and I was lucky enough to be invited to participate and get a couple of shows during that festival. It became the anchor for the tour, really. And the tour involved house concerts and folk clubs. It involved songwriting workshops with the Bedouin community in Beersheba in the desert, in the Negev desert. And then off to Greece, and we played some, kind of cafe stuff and a house concert, and stayed with some friends. So it was really great to get back and meet people I hadn't seen for a long time, make a whole bunch of friends. And my wife is on stage with me because she's a fantastic singer.
Mm-hmm.
She used to play in her own band. She's a trained classical violin player,
Mm-hmm.
but became a singer because the money was better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she was in big bands of, 9-piece bands on stage, doing the big Celine Dion stuff and whatever. But now she backs me up, and I keep bugging her, like, why don't you be on stage and do the big song stuff? And she doesn't want, she's happy to do what she's doing. So she was my backup singer and support person and assistant roadie, throughout the tour. And it was a great, not a moneymaker, but at least a subsidized vacation that was packed full of fun.
Mm-hmm. So that's Roxana, of course. Did I say her name correctly?
Oksana with an O.
Oksana. Sorry, I tripped there on that. Oksana. Wonderful.
Yeah, and that's that was the poster for the tour with a listing of all the shows. I'm really proud of that event. Actually, it was self-funded, self-made, whatever, but it was a lot of effort and coordination, as you can imagine, to try to put something like that together. But what a great experience it was for me. And the other thing, as a musician, I came back, I think, a better musician as well, because I played 10 shows on tour, solo, essentially. And it was really good for me to do that. So you have to, I guess, as you can imagine, when you're playing solo anyway, whether you're doing a cover or whether you're doing your own songs, and for me, it's mostly my own songs, you change the arrangement to suit what you're doing and what you have. So it was fun to do songs a bit differently because I'm playing them solo. But fortunately, the songs that I write and the songs that we produce on the record, we're very careful that we don't overproduce a song that can't be played with just solo, as one guy with one guitar sort of thing. So, but I realized that when I got back that I felt that I was a better player, and because I had basically 10 shows of practice under my belt.
Yeah. So this is the book, and I have listened to Mr. Romeo Dallaire spoke, I think it was in Montreal, one of the speakers convention that I go to every year.
Yeah.
He'd spoken there for an hour and a half almost, with lots of slides, photos and stories. And so you actually spent time with him, like personally, and in fact working under him through your assignment there, eh?
Yeah, in Rwanda, I knew of Romeo before because he was an artillery colonel when I knew him. He was a general with the UN when I worked for him, not for very long, maybe a month in Rwanda. But since then as well, I was a part of the early planning stages of what he has now called the Child Soldier Initiative, which is to do with child soldiers. And it's something that I'm an advocate for as well. It's part of my Rwanda show that I'm touring. I do mention the child soldier issue. So I was at the University of Victoria working on a panel, just sort of orienting and helping develop the idea behind the Child Soldier Initiative. And I was brought on the panel, I think, mainly because I had some experience with child soldiers. That's all I had. It's not like I was an expert or anything like that. I just was a member of the military. I had some experience with child soldiers. I'd worked with Dallaire. So I was very fortunate that someone decided to bring me aboard on that panel. And now this Child Soldier Initiative it's taken off a life of its own that Romeo is running, and it's his project. It's his effort, and the whole thing is to eradicate child soldiers on the planet, which would be a good thing if it could ever happen. And this book, deviating from that, is it is a kind of a chicken soup for the soul kind of thing. It was Simon and Schuster put it out. It's still around some of the stores like Indigo and whatever. This is something else that I can mail out, although Canada Post charges an arm and a leg for a book, if you can believe it. But still, it's reasonably priced. And the stories in there are very eclectic because they're written by veterans and from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, peacekeeping, such, etc. And this story in here happens to be about one of my escapades that happens to be in Rwanda, actually. And the gist of the story is how a beer might have saved my life one day. And I won't tell the story because that way people will buy the book and find it for themselves.
There you go. Just the trailer. Let's not show the movie right now. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, as we sort of look further here, I think there are actually that was the last photo in the series there. So thank you for sharing that. Much appreciated. And then as we think about sort of other aspects, I know you don't have a meeting right after this, and I don't right after this, so we have a bit of time. We're going to run over our sort of hour spot there. We're going to continue until
Sure.
we sort of had enough chatting. But tell us about the music again. So coming back to the music, what's your vision of your music for the next? Now, COVID aside, we'll kind of have to deal with that. But generally speaking, let's say prior to COVID, what was your vision? For your music in the next three years or something like that. What does that look like?
Yeah, I wanted to just play more shows, share the music, get more national than just regional or provincial for some of the venues.
Mm-hmm.
And that is way easier said than done. I mean, the average person that's not a musician doesn't realize how hard it is to get a gig anywhere, really, especially as a songwriter. You're not playing the bar circuit every weekend. It's not the pubs and the bars. You are playing concert halls, theaters, folk clubs, this sort of thing, or wherever you can, really, if it's financially feasible and it makes sense. But where I saw myself going over the next 3 years was just trying to get just a little bit farther ahead. I still think I have more potential to reach, and I wanted to use the next few years to reach that potential, which was getting more good quality shows nationally, but also perhaps in the States and internationally, again, like do another tour. And I was in the middle of planning something sort of regional, even if it was Eastern Canada, Maritimes, or Ontario when COVID happened. So I'd like to revisit that opportunity and preferably not solo, but with the trio. So it was, it needed to be planned properly, be budgeted properly. As long as we weren't losing money, it would be a go. But at least that way you get to share your music personally with people. And again, like I've said a couple of times already, if no show, no merchandise. It's kind of like that. But I'm very fortunate that my shows generate pretty good merchandise sales. I think because I can communicate with the crowd very well, and they appreciate the sincerity and the credibility that I bring to the songs and the stories, because they're meeting someone that might have lived through something. But the other thing is that there's a lot of folks out there who have sons and daughters and husbands and wives and grandchildren, whatever, that have served in the military, or in some cases may have died, serving abroad in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And so when I'm playing and I'm doing a song and I'm reintroducing a moment, somehow I'm connecting with those people too. And they come up to me after the show to thank me. And it's very awkward. And I don't mean awkward in a bad way. It's just, when someone is crying on your shoulder and they're saying, thank you for sharing, and they've lost their son or their husband or their daughter. And it meant a lot to them to hear that song. It's hard to, all you can do is sort of give them a hug. Right. So, so I think that's part of the story behind the songs sometimes that I share, because my whole show isn't serious like that at all. It's just, I have moments where there's some good, there's jovial moments, and then there's moments where, it sort of swings the other way. And, one of the things I've been working hard on in the last couple of years, and I wanted to continue in the next 3 years, was also improving the show. It's not just about the song, right? It's about the whole show experience. So when people leave, they can say that was a really, really great show. Yeah. And that's important. So as an entertainer, as a performer, and people like Sharon, who chimed in earlier, he would know this. You can sound great on stage and you can play great on stage, but if you don't look great, you don't give the crowd something to look at, and that it really, really adds to the whole experience for an audience, right? So
absolutely.
So yeah, to sum up, the 3 years was really just working on the show, getting more exposure nationally, and I don't mind quality over quantity when it comes to shows. and selling the record, latest record, and then working on the next one. So that's kind of where I still see myself going. I just we've got a bit of an obstacle in front of us right now. That's all. We just have to wait.
Yeah. Tell us about this clip here that I'm going to show, which is the Into the Gray. I'm going to display it. Introduce it for us before I start playing.
Okay. You want to do maybe a minute or two of that? It's this was filmed. This was the video shoot that I did, and Maureen Ames was taking the pictures, and Don Marcotte was doing the video. And I've got Stuart McDougall on the keys, Mark Ladisser on guitar, Brendan Lyons on drums, and John Hewitt on bass. And it's a song called Into the Gray. Also a song a little bit about not really knowing where one is going sometimes, and you just want to fade back and sort of go into the gray and not be upfront in your emotions or in your life. Like it's kind of a situation like that. But really the story behind the video is that this was in a Quonset hut on top of a barn that's been made into a bar. There's no air conditioning, and it was done last year, and the temperature outside was about 35 and inside was about 45 Celsius. And it was ridiculously hot. And there we are in our suits. And if you look closely, you're going to see beads of sweat on all of us. But the nice thing is that the people that played on this album, for the most part, are in the video. And it's kind of, the song is a bit of a retro, dreamy take back to I would say the 50s in terms of the style of the song. It's just, we're
so cool for being so hot.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? So this is acting. And it really was one of my first sort of video shoots ever. So it was kind of fun to do.
The things we go through for our audiences, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it worked out pretty good, actually. I'm really happy with the video.
It's all unknown what I will find when I then slip away into the grave. I cannot tell how far to go. Wish you were with me, but I'm alone. So I will walk one step at a time, and then slip away into the grave. I don't know if I'll ever see it through. Will I find grace, or will I find truth, or love that will stay and lift me from the fall I've made into the grave?
Yeah, so there we are.
It looks so cool.
And we're making it even hotter by putting steam up
Yeah.
into the camera. So it was, I'll tell you, and the weird thing is that this was last year, and I don't know if you remember the weather around Edmonton, Alberta last year, but it sucked. Except for that day. It was super hot. It was like probably the hottest, nicest day we had all summer. And there we are locked inside this Quonset for a few hours. And the other thing is that Stuart's playing the piano on the keys there, and he's a bit of a runner, you know. It's how he keeps his girlish figure, you know. But he had a fall while he was running. He tripped and fell and put his hands out, and ended up like getting stitches in both palms of his hands.
Oh,
And what
no.
you don't see in that video is his bandages underneath his hands that he's trying to play. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
the stories of show business, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a style of piano that we really liked in this song. Like I said, it's a bit of a retro, dreamy, almost a Twin Peaks sort of feel to this song.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of my favorite songs on the album, actually. Just because I like the feel of it. It's got a great groove. Yeah,
almost looks like the scene from some of the old movies where, you know, you got the military base nearby, and you know, you got the yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about your are you in one band or multiple bands right now? How many projects do you have going on right now?
That's really just mine. Yeah, it's me.
Mhm.
And I mostly play with the trio, Mark Ladisser and John Hewitt, and again sometimes a drummer like Brendan Lyons or someone.
Mhm.
But that's the only thing I'm working on. I mean, otherwise I do the odd jam or something like that when we used to do them.
Mhm.
And I'm not really a jammer because I'm a songwriter,
Mhm.
but I like playing covers. I do play some covers in my show too.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to go to jams or open stages or
Yeah.
whatever, just because you can play stuff that you normally don't play in your show.
Yeah.
So that's good. But yeah, it's just the one project. It's enough, frankly,
Yeah.
to keep up with everything. And because I spend way too much time on the computer and on social media.
Mhm.
If I wasn't a musician as a songwriter and self-managed, I know for sure I wouldn't be spending that much effort and energy. It's very tiring. The business side of music is sucks. Actually, I don't enjoy it at all.
Mhm.
I like performing. I like creating, and probably all artists would agree with my statement.
Yeah.
But again, when you're self-managed, it's extra work or extra pressure, maybe, or extra stress, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep up with it, and then technology keeps changing, or there's some other app or something else you need.
Yeah.
And then every time you go to apply for a festival or a venue or a show or a showcase, you know, the rules sort of change, or suddenly you need to provide more content.
Mhm.
You know, so now, before it was just you had to provide an MP3 of a song, or not. Now it's like videos and show. You know, you have to have merch. You have to have maybe 2 or 3 records or something. I don't know. They keep adjusting the goalposts for artists. For, you know, how can we make this more difficult? Plus, you've got lots of competition.
Yeah.
And frankly, let's be honest. There's there's some stuff out there that is it looks great, but doesn't mean your live show is as good as your hype.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of on the other side of it. I'm kind of like, my live show is good. I know that I'm working on it, and it's proven to be good through merchandise sales and getting more gigs from your shows, because that one show hopefully begets another, right? That's how it works.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do now is catch up on all the digital profile stuff, like all the stuff that everybody seems to need now, in terms of videos and pictures and audio, and with the songs now being mostly streamed, you know, Spotify or Amazon or Apple Music or whatever, pick a platform. The other unfortunate part of that is the artists really get virtually nothing out of that, other than they're getting their song played by somebody. But it's not like even iTunes, that used to sell your albums for $9.99, of which I get maybe $6 or $7 of that. iTunes isn't really selling much either anymore for albums, even singles. People are just using streaming platforms. So that's another change to the industry that I've seen in my short time.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been that short. It's been 20 years, actually, since almost 20 years that I've been sort of doing this more full time ish.
Yeah.
Certainly since 2004, I've been kind of probing into this music thing. And I think I would be farther ahead now. But what I did back in 2004, 5, 6 is that I would just get going on some music and momentum, and then I would go on a military deployment overseas somewhere, and I'd lose momentum. I come back to Canada, have to restart everything all over again.
But now you have a bit of a clean slate to kind of focus on music for the next little while. So looking forward to how that translates. Now, you have a clip here that I want to show. So maybe introduce to our viewers this clip of the 25 years after Rwanda.
Okay.
Give us some introduction before I hit play here.
Okay, so last year is the 25th anniversary of the genocide in Rwanda.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to commemorate that somehow. And I didn't want it to be a history lesson or a political lecture or anything. I just wanted it to be a personal account story of what I did in my year in Rwanda, as my way of commemorating my time there, but also the tragedy that occurred. So I've made a touring show that I use pictures from that I took or that friends took.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing off the internet. It's all stuff that's real that I can speak to.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell some stories about my time there, what it was like living there, working there, the kind of experiences that I had and some of the trials and tribulations, if you will. And then I add live music to it. And there's some songs on this show that I only play. They haven't been part of my normal show. It's only played on this show. I have a couple of songs that I only play on here. So it's kind of a combination of public speaking and live music with the trio, generally speaking. And then it's touring, ideally it was going to go across Canada. And I managed to get several shows before the COVID thing happened. And I've got several shows booked, or some shows booked ahead we're booked ahead for this year. So we'll just wait and see what happens. But anyway, that's the story behind the show. And this video that you've got here is the short version. These are on my YouTube channel. There's a long version as well that tells a little bit more, has a bit more samples of the music. But this is an electronic press kit, an EPK, made for the show. So venue buyers could take a look at this and get a feel for what the show is about. And this video was filmed at Festival Place Theater, Festival Place Theater in Sherwood Park. They bought the inaugural show, which was last April. So April, this was the very first show that we did on the tour as the show started touring. And the show has since evolved a little bit because we've had shows under our belt and we've kind of tightened it up and made things a little smoother and better. And because we've done the show a few times, so it really helps. But we were really happy with the way it turned out, and in a great crowd. And we had members of the Rwandan community also attend. And there were several people in the audience, which I found every time I play this, it happens, people that have been to Rwanda in some capacity, or they've had parents or brothers or sisters that have been to Rwanda in some capacity. And so they come to the show and they can kind of relate, and then they meet you afterwards and want to tell their story. And so that's really cool that some of these shows that, like, we do this, it's you meet people that not only thank you for the show and whatever, but they are anxious to meet you so they can tell you a little bit about their story. And I find that really, really beneficial to being an artist.
They want to continue the conversation. So let me just hit play and let's take a look, folks. Let's go there.
As I wander down the road less traveled, thinking through some echoes in my mind.
In 1994, there was a tragic genocide in Rwanda, and myself and a couple dozen other Canadian military officers were deployed with the United Nations into that chaos as unarmed military observers, initially under the command of fellow Canadian General Middle. And arriving that summer, I then spent a year living and working among the sights and sounds of the jungle and hills of Rwanda. And little did I know then, it would have an effect on my life forever.
There's a dream I have, it pulls me under.
He's the real deal. He's a journeyman musician, he's a writer, and he's a great storyteller.
And does freedom bring peace, or the other way around? Can we break down the walls to the ground?
Really, all of us have our own stories, and I knew that someday I would find my voice to tell my story.
Listen to the voice.
And in fact, the sentiment and lyrics of my songs often come from my own unique experiences, and Rwanda would certainly be one of them.
Listen to the voice calling me, calling you.
Wow. Well, best wishes with that journey, my friend. I think when COVID lets up and you're able to resume with that, that will be a very special journey there. Oh, sorry, I muted you accidentally there.
Oh, I said, yeah. So thanks, Dune. Appreciate that, and appreciate our time today, being able to talk. And I know that particular touring show, when it goes, I won't be playing that show forever. It's not an easy show for me to give, quite frankly. It's always a bit of a challenge, but and plus there's also technical challenges with that show that I get to endure sometimes. But no, it's just the show has some legs. I think it's one of the things I'd like to mention, though, is that when I do that show, even when I don't do that particular show, wherever I go in my musical journey, and when I visit towns and cities, I like to do outreach to schools. And based on my time in the military and the Rwanda theme, I offer sort of an hour-long concert or just a presentation to local high schools. Because human rights and peacekeeping and international issues are part of the social studies curriculum, and Rwanda is part of that. So I offer some insight, and I offer this basically to schools. So while I'm in town doing a show, I'll stop at the school, do maybe a presentation before I do the show that evening. In a theater, or maybe it's a different day or whatever, but it's just something I like to share. And I've had some really, really good feedback from that offer. And I've learned a lot from it as well. Just, meeting the high school students and being able to influence them a little bit. Again, it's not a political lecture or a history lesson. It's really just this is the kind of stuff I do, but I do have some key messages that I leave with the students and the staff. Who are in attendance when I'm doing the presentation. So it's just something that is included in that production.
Yeah. So really inspirational storytelling, really.
I guess so. It's I lived it, so it's for me. It's not the same, but yeah, I still, even if I'm not doing that special Rwanda show, I do make Rwanda references in my normal music show that I bring to life some of the experience, for the audience that I share with the audience. Yeah.
In other words, you bring your full self to your concerts, and you share your full self with your audiences, and not just the music, but the life experiences and insights that comes with that. And so now I know that when we discuss having you coming on here, you might have some other stories that you want to share, or some other sort of insights that you want to share as we sort of round the corner on wrapping up this. Anything that you want to add that may not have been brought out yet, Tim?
I'm not sure. I think we've kind of covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate the time that you've offered up. Hopefully we've been able to share some of a little bit about me and my music with some people that I haven't met before. And maybe they'll be interested in clicking on my YouTube channel or my Facebook page, or giving me a like on my Facebook page. All the things you need nowadays.
Yeah.
An artist, the Beginner's Kit for Artists is a Facebook page, apparently.
Yeah.
And Instagram and all that sort of fun stuff. But I just appreciate the offer, or the opportunity rather, to share some music and a little bit about myself with a wider audience. And I look forward to seeing people in 3 dimensions somewhere along the way with a show. And in the meantime, if people want to check out a YouTube channel or a website or whatever, just go to timisberg.com, and most of the links are there. So it's an easy one-stop shopping sort of click.
We have the technology to do this, my friends. I'll just take a couple of minutes here. There is the website. Anything, particular thing you want to draw out for our viewers while we happen to have it on screen here, Tim?
I think for the most part, it's there's some interesting press articles on the press kit. There's a lot of different newspaper articles and some video that's shared on there. The gallery kind of gives an idea of some of the pictures that we've sort of shared with the public.
Beautiful
one way or the other. Yeah. And so, just different times of my career or different parts of where I've been and some of the pictures that you've shown today. So, it's when you look at this gallery, it's like, who is this guy? Well, that's who I am. I'm a bit goofy at times, can be serious when I need to be. Had a bit of a different upbringing and lifestyle than maybe the average singer-songwriter. But again, that it's part of my show. It's part of what brings, it's part of the story behind the song is who I am. And being in the military has influenced my music for sure, because it's a part of who I am. So I don't have any regrets for that.
If I may, you were born and raised on a farm and spent decades in the military, and also spent a lot of time on stages in front of audiences, entertaining them and giving. That's a pretty diverse set of skills and insights there, my friend.
Well, practice makes perfect, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not like we're in this for the money.
You just want to be able to make it work, right, in the long run, sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, it's art. Whether you're painting or writing or writing literature, or you're writing songs, or you're a sculptor, whatever you might be. It's art, and art is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So her beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Yeah. So it's you do this based on your passion. Not saying it's not hard, and not saying that there's times where I'd just rather not do this. I'd rather, nothing wrong with having a 9-to-5 job and weekends off. Actually, it's steady. It's less stress in a way, but I've taken what was kind of a hobby and I've made it more into a profession. And so obviously I needed to get more into the business aspect, and that's the only part that I don't enjoy. But it's absolutely necessary. Or else I can't do what I'm actually doing.
Yeah. So looking forward.
I mean, unless I have money falling out of my pockets.
Looking forward to a time when you scale up enough that you can hand some of those tasks to some other people. Perhaps there are. So
But you know what, Dune? It's for me. My friend Mike Plume, I think, mentioned. We were talking about this, and we said, look, it's one show, one fan at a time, and that is my sort of modus operandi. For the most part, that's the way I have to look at it. So when you're doing a house concert for 25 people, or you're playing in a theater for 500 people, it's the same show for me. And because I want to make sure that that person that's experiencing that has that opportunity. And in fact, some of the smaller shows are better because you get a little bit more intimate, and you get a little bit more close, and you can, and people meet you easier. They can talk to you longer. There's not 500 people that want to talk to you or whatever after the show. It's just a small group. So these are all great things. So one show, one fan at a time. And, every record you sell, or every person that streams your song, either way, it's something you're sharing. And it is really, I guess it's part of one's legacy, isn't it? Because once it's out there, it's out there. So it's really quite gratifying, actually, to know that you can share music in such a wide manner.
Yeah. So Tim, there are 3 words that you want to share with our viewers that you want them to kind of keep top of mind as they think about you and this conversation here. 3 separate, independent words that comes to mind.
Singer-Songwriter-Soldier, I guess.
There you go. Mr. Tim Isberg, singer, songwriter, soldier. You have been enjoying the hour and a bit with Tim, and for our viewers out there, thank you so much for spending the time with us, and now and later. And take good care of yourself, and take good care of one another till we meet again. This has been the hour and a bit with Tim Isberg. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.